welcome to Nirmal Bang, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Hiral Datia. We have with us Mr. Krishnan Venkatachary, CFO at Cigniti Technologies, joining in. Welcome to the show, Krishnan, and a pleasure to speak to you as well. Krishnan, overall, if you have to look at the fourth quarter of FY23, firstly, has it met your internal expectations, and how would you actually describe the quarter?
Okay. Yeah, good morning, and thank you, Hiral, for having me in the call and in the webinar today. Frankly, on a Q4 basis, there was a bit surprises. Probably we anticipated that we should be there at about 11% in terms of EBITDA, but I think a couple of percentage point needed for spending out in terms of certain marketing dollars, and then rejigging the marketing team, which was necessitated. Also, the servicing of the customers in terms of the resource retention continued in Jan, Feb, March as well. When we spoke at Jan end, probably we thought that we should be able to arrest that out, but I think that didn't happen out basically. So, but now we are taking a closer look in terms of the cost. But I think I can give a step back and give a summary out in terms of what it is basically, where we have done an analysis comparing to last year to this year. Last year is a year of pandemic where we'll have to neutralize the salary reductions, which we all have foregone to retain the bench strength. And the second portion is that optimization of cost, because most of the people out of fear have not traveled out and things were on web completely. And keeping all that, probably while my EBITDA may look on paper at 16%, probably it will have dropped down by about a percentage, where it was as usual as a stabilized percentage of 15%. But I think comparing to 15% to this year in terms of 10.7, probably Liberty, I would put it out as 11% thing, or 11.5% on a neutralized basis in terms of removing the one-time cost out. So the differential 3.5%, we know for sure basically that there has been some amount of investment in the marketing dollar, because with a few of the senior leaders exiting out. So that is one thing. And the second reason basically is retention and replacement has taken a toll in terms of what we need to really invest out. We are keeping a tight watch, and we know for sure, we are cautiously optimistic that we should be able to pull our strings back together. While also it should be considered that is a growth year. We have grown at about 38% in the overall scheme of things. And growth comes with it with a couple problem in terms of compromising on the margin. But I think I'll explain the rationale as we start moving up as to why we accelerated this kind of a growth. We can make it more interactive as we start.
Right. So taking these points into consideration, what are the segments of business which you think will be growth drivers from here on?
We feel that basically our BFSI sector, our retail and healthcare, these are the three sectors which are going to contribute. If you look at in the order, because we have also won, we have made an announcement in a very recent announcement that we have won a single $10 million, $10.2 million in a single year order for 3 years, basically, which is roughly about 30 million or so from a leading bank from the Midwest area. And in the US, so invariably our focus has been on the BFSI. So that is also we are trying to look at more into the insurance and other foray into the sectors of BFSI. BFSI will lead the pack. Next will be healthcare, and then comes the retail. While retail comes with it as a challenges in terms of the margin being slightly lower, but the volumes kicks in. But we need to balance it out. See, the other portion probably what we're trying to do out is that out of our 2,700 odd billable resources, comparing to what is 3,300 plus people or whatever it is, today we have about close to 800 plus people which are not named in the accounts. So there has been a legacy system of naming of people in the accounts, and we are trying to get that out. And this year we have put ourselves a target of additional 1,000 to 1,200 people in terms of trying to get that out, where the CIOs are really accepting out very clearly that just let's focus on deliverables, and then that will help me to change the pyramid, bring in freshers, bring in the combinations, and bring in cost-effective savings, and then process-dependent rather than people-dependent. I think that is also one of the things. So these are the sectors which can.
Right. And overall, if you see in terms of business growth from here on as well, would it be right to say that we could achieve, say, higher double-digit growth?
Absolutely. The confidence level is that now I can talk about the growth. We pressed the growth on a couple of grounds at about, we did land up at about 38%. We pressed it on a couple of grounds, basically, is that one, over the last 3 years of 2017 to 20, we have been averaging at about 8% with a stabilized EBITDA at about 50%. While 20 taught us, the pandemic taught us clearly a message that, look, dependency heavily on a single sector is going to really put us into the back burner. And the travel was that sector which shook us out clearly. while the investments made over 2021 and 21-22 made us to float around and then grow at this accelerated 38%, we have created basically the platforms in terms of building a center of excellence. Investing the last year alone, we saw what we have invested about close to $1 million in terms of building a center of excellence. And all that is turning out to be a revenue accretive during the year and partially during the last year and during the year. So we made a lot of such changes, and also the transformation journey in terms of from 2021 to 2026, where we have talked about a 500 million journey. We also will involve development work as well on the select areas, especially on the digital AML and other areas. So keeping all that, probably the high teen growth in terms of, just as a one example, while 2020-21 has been a subdued year, 21-22 had a growth. The growth was necessitated to really go ahead and compromising the margin for one reason is that assurance to ourselves, assurance to the market that instability in terms of people moving out is not a cause for concern for Cigniti. There are people, there are customers with us, there are executable processes for us. So that is one of the reasons. And now we are tightening the belt to review out to see that how that can be converted much more profitable, or how to let go a few things so that it can have a balanced portfolio out. This year, if you look at it coming year, while I'll just take a minute. Last year, we have anticipated about a 25% growth and the rest through inorganic growth. But I think when we started growing organically itself, we just kept the inorganic growth because the prices were north. The valuations were huge and people are demanding quite high. And we know for sure that 12 months down the line, 24 months down the line, the entire valuations will settle down. And especially when you look at the great recession, which people are talking about in the US, I think we expect that more and more valuations, good companies will come at a better valuations or something. So the high teens growth is an order of the day for us, basically, and you can be rest assured that we are going to grow at that level.
Right. So overall, if you have to see in terms of the sectors as well, as you mentioned, it's going to be BFSI, healthcare, retail in that order in terms of priority. How do we see the revenue mix changing basis sectors?
If you look at it, I think even in the current year, probably if you see you have seen the investor presentation. I've just given the order out basically that our thrust will be on BFSI basically. One, stickiness with the client. Once client signs up basically on security reasons, invariably we have a longer term contract coming through. Second is that when we go for a combination of skilled and little bit semi-skilled work, invariably the pricing tend to be higher. If you look at on the year-on-year basis, basically we were able to increase our on-site realization by about $4, and offshore realization on a year-on-year basis has moved up by about $1 or so. But we are still trying to push around to see that how best this can be optimized out. So that is one of the reasons that we'll be focusing on the expertise which has been built on center of excellence around the BFSI and the retail and healthcare. As a combination, what we expect basically in this order is that we wanted these three to do a sheet anchoring role of about contributing about 70 to 75% business. And then the rest of the businesses can come from the generic, which can piggyback on.
Right. So is it right to say that we are looking to increase on-site realization, as you said, by $4 and off-site by $1?
We have already done. There will be a continuous process in terms of visiting the clients. This will be the right where we have started already approaching, and then out of the top 70 clients, 30 clients have provided us the rate increase, which is effective from January to from April. The rate increases have happened, and we are trying to look at it in terms of trying to do a rate revision. While the rate revision is a part, but if you look at the heartening part, basically is that we have shifted about 3% comparing to last year in terms of the businesses as a revenue mix, which has increased in terms of the offshore realization. So that is one thing. However, the challenges around the offshore basically is that while it would have become a margin accretive, should have been on an ideal scenario on account of the labor market today, it became a little bit negative in terms of margins getting drained out on account of retention costs being quite high. We feel that this phenomena will settle down by about June, July or so, and still we'll continue to make it in such a way that our offshore revenue moves up on as a mix, but on both offshore and on-site, as we start bringing in the digital proportion as well, we expect the overall scheme of things, rate realization will start moving.
Right. And overall, if you see in terms of regions as well, majority of our revenues come in from North America. Are we seeing a revenue mix change by regions as well?
Possibly could be a couple of percentage, because if you look at the there are two things to look at. One is a wider market which is available. Second thing is that with the GDPR and other issues in the UK and European region very clearly, and the rest of the world region in terms of Asia and Middle East, probably we can do business, but if we have to do volumes, we'll have to compromise on the margins very clearly. So the revenue mix in terms of the region, if I start tilting it out, I think it'll affect my margins. And because GDPR, reaching out to the clients under the GDPR regime in terms of trying to put that out clearly, I think is a challenge faced by every company. So invariably, if you look at it, who has established a base and then they keep continuing, we have also established a base and we're trying to focus. But I think investing a dollar, which is equivalent in to a pound in US, gives me a better return because there are wider market, and I'll be able to, for example, I have today top 70 clients. If my next year strategy in terms of a growth at even at about 25%, predominantly comes through mining, because I'm just trying to look at what can be done within these existing clients and how much is the IT budget and how much I can garner out from that very clearly, so that I can get the best realization from the sales guys rather than trying to adding up more clients or whatever it is. So you have a potential which is quite high in US, and I feel that the environment for operation in US is much better comparing to the cost. The second element is the cost. The cost portion with respect to the social security and the retirement cost, which is quite high in the European region clearly. And the European laws are also completely different. So there in US, probably an on-site guy with 15 days notice, you can get that separated out. And a contract employee which is hired out can be just settled in a day's time. I think there are a lot of complexities in Europe. So we would say that if the mix probably tilts based on the volume, it can tilt. If my volume goes to about, say, for example, 250 million, probably 35 million, 40 million can come from the rest of the world. And that could tilt the mix invariably. But I think as such, I think the focus will be more on North America.
Right. And overall, if you see, do we have any patents pending right now?
We have already we have about 2 patents pending to answer your question straight. But I think there are already during the year, I think another 3 patents have been won by us very clearly. So a good amount of kitting. But I think with this new acquisition coming through, I think the accelerations for more patents will start. We started feeling the craving that we need to start filing more patents so that we get accelerated. Yeah.
Right. And overall, in terms of where the digital business is concerned, what's the strategy looking like?
Strategy is very clean. See what we in our endeavor in 2021, if you look at it, let me put it out very clearly that it's a 100 people billing team which we have on the digital side very clear. Hardcore in terms of a DevOps. When you look at it, the total digital business, if you look at it from digital assurance side and digital DevOps side put together, will composite about close to 31% of the total revenue on 168 million. However, out of that, about 100 people, if you look at it, which is contributing completely purely for DevOps. And the strategy very clearly with Roundsquare or Apara Digital, whatever brand name is about Roundsquare, which is coming through clearly, is that we are going to expose our entire set of top 70 clients clearly who are the global 2K clients. And they have huge requirement in terms of the digital transformation initiative. And with these guys who are with the full stack developers sitting about close to 75 people and have a passionate team of founders very clearly, we thought that this can do a cross-sell and upsell. So the digital foray, if you look at the high teen growth, what I have talked about, for example, we have budgeted about from 170 to say a high teen growth, reaching out to say roughly about 200 plus odd million. This does not include this new acquisition, which is going to do a cross-selling and upselling, which will be an added revenue to the kitty and to the bottom line very clearly. So the strategy is very clear. If you look at 2021 to 26 at a 500 million, probably will be at a development revenue or a SI kind of a revenue contributing about 30%, about 70% approximately will come from the quality assurance side. That's what is the thinking. Yeah.
And in terms of the recent acquisition that you've announced as well with regards to Apara Digital, what is the strategy on that front, and what is the strategic fit to the business?
Absolutely, great question. Most of the companies acquire companies basically in terms of for the volume which everybody is known very clearly. We thought that we'll have to do transform this company while transforming the company from a QA assurance to a digital assurance, coupled with the opportunities in terms of the digital landscape, clearly in terms of a digital transformation was quite high. We saw the opportunity. When we saw that opportunity, there were two ways to look at it. One, do a jump start in terms of trying to acquire a company and do that. While the jump starting was getting delayed, we also invested in our center of excellence to convert this out over the last 18 months. And we thought that once we do this, as we get a company on board, basically we can merge these two in terms of that keep it as a BU, SBU, legal entity, whatever it is, and get there and create a value creation in terms of trying to see that how best it can be productized, what can be done, and things like that. So the whole idea of picking up a digital, if you look at it, is that founders have been closely associated. They all have come from a good background in terms of working from various companies, of six of them. And six of them have come back and started this company. And then they took about an incubation time of about 6 months to 1 year. And then in less than 2 years' time, they have achieved a turnover of about 2.85 million. And currently, the order book position is about close to 4.2 million. And they have committed to deliver a 6 million revenue. And the EBITDA at the second year of operation there has been at about 17.8%. And they expect to operate the EBITDA at about close to 19 to 20% this year and 22% next year. So what happens basically is that they have been able to build passionately, because these guys have come from Microsoft, Accenture, Wipro, and various other places, and they've been able to talk to the CIO levels on the BFSI and the healthcare sector in terms of trying to get marquee clients. While it is so, basically, they also have built a platform called Zastra, which is on the AML data analytics, and the data scientists which they have recruited and where they have been able to retain. We thought that integration will never be an issue. One, as a value proposition, basically, they need to invest, frankly, money to expand their business out very clearly. They need to invest on marketing dollars. They need to invest very clearly on the sales dollars clearly to expand. We thought that we have that strength. We have invested out very clearly, and it will be a good fit. So we thought that, and also the valuation at this stage come to me because their platform still needs to be a little bit investment needs to be done in the platform, which can be through the realization of the money which is coming through within the company. So we thought that as a bigger boat, probably they'll be able to deliver for an entire set of 70 clients. If I expose, probably for them to run to 100 million digital business is quite easy. And integration becomes a completely a smooth affair invariably, because with the set of limited set of people and limited set of focus invariably, and with no complexities involved, there's no debt, there's no kind of any issues. We thought that that could be a right pick for us invariably, and then get that integrated out. It will be a win-win kind of a thing. So the whole idea is that we want to build a completely a digital operations to drive through this Apara Digital. As I told you that legally for tax secretary purpose, currently we are making it 100% subsidiary by acquiring it completely. But I think that legal entity can get merged into this, and then it could be a single entity running through, and it could be a SBU. For all that, I think all that I leave it to the tax and accounting experts to really come back and advise us.
Right. So another question on the acquisition is, to what extent will it help our margins and bottom line?
See, today, if you look at it, probably the 3 million revenue on a 170 million revenue, what we are talking is about 2%. When I talk even at about 5-6 million on a 200 million, which is again translating to about 3% of the revenue. So 3% of the revenue, as long as that revenue doesn't drain out clearly any margin and then achieves 18%, it's going to be a fractional increase in my margin. But what happens for me is that if that 6 million can go to 25 million, when I'm there at about 250 million, and 6 million goes to 25 million quickly in terms of the expertise what they have and the clientele what I expose out very clearly, and the sales guys pitching in and the client partners pitching in, and that goes there basically with the 20%. Definitely it will add a couple of basis points from a 14-15% where I'm in, basically on an averaging basis it will start moving up clearly. Right. But I think it will happen. It's bound to happen invariably, but it will be like we need to wait for about 12 to 15 months for that to happen, basically, because there are so many complexities in the business, basically, as you know.
Right. And my last question coming to you, Krishnan, is, so from here on, if you have to look at the next 3 to 5 years, what are the key milestones you're looking to cross?
So the key milestone, basically, I think this year we would like to clock up plus about 200 million plus in terms of revenue and keep the EBITDA at about 15%, though it is not a guidance, but then the visual thinking in terms of trying to get that growth stabilized out. And accelerate our digital engineering foray very clearly, which can add to the kitty out separately. We will be looking at some kind of an inorganic growth invariably to accelerate our thrust on the cybersecurity space and the digital engineering space clearly. And get to the 500 million target much faster than the desired 5-year term what we have talked about.
Right. So would it be right to say 2,000 crores in terms of top line and 15% margins is what the wish list would look like?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. All right, Krishnan. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. A pleasure to speak to you. Good luck. And congratulations once again, and speak to you soon again. Stay safe.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel for in-depth interviews of India Inc. and press the bell icon so that you do not miss our updates.